Welcome, I'm Michael Corbett, and today we're going to talk about some of the North Dakota oil train derailments and the ethics behind them. Uh, so the parties involved, it's pretty much the Department of Transportation, their Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA, branch, the oil train car engineers. Today I'm going to try and focus more on the oil train engineers. There's not a lot of info that I found on them, so we're going to work on that. So their values, it, it was basically all money. Um, Train companies work on a very low budget, so the engineers have to make best do with what they have, which typically isn't a whole lot. Next was safety. I mean, all engineers are they're very concerned about safety. Uh, these engineers seem to have let that take a backdoor to money. Um, there's things performance-wise, which is this next little bullet, that it looks like they could have done a better job at. So my understanding is that the train car brakes start from the front, or where the engine is, where the conductor is, and then work their way back in a systematic pattern. They made developments to where they're electronically generated or electronically applied. They still work front to back, which is an issue basically in a physics problem. So if you've got a train with all these little joints and you're applying the brakes at the front of the train is starting to slow down, which is compressing these couples together, and they will try and move side to side. The reason for that is you've got all this mass behind it that's still trying to go forward. Now these electronic brakes help with that, but if they're not all being applied at the same time, or even better yet, from the rear to the front, then you've basically got this issue where it's going to try and collapse upon itself, and that's how you get a derailment, just from braking. Not even turns or high speeds, just slowing it down. The fourth thing that these engineers seem to value are the laws. These laws were kind of set in place to more or less actually just meet what companies were already practicing. Low speed limits, 50 miles per hour outside of residential areas, 40 miles per hour max speed going through residential areas. But their values were more or less just money. So the morality, I mean, again, it's utilitarian. It's increasingly money focused. We spoke about the designs a little bit. Their designs deal more with derailment instead of preventing derailment. So they upgraded the train cars, they made them more sturdy. They're still using sheet metal, which sparks, and sparks tend to ignite oil. I don't know why they chose to keep using sheet metal other than money. They could have used something along the lines of aluminum or copper, something that doesn't spark when it makes contact with a stone, which line almost every trail or every train rail. Yes, it's very expensive to do that, but it also prevents sparks, lessening the amount of fires that can happen. You'll still have oil leaks, but it's better just to clean up oil than to let oil burn. And they really only kind of focus on the train itself. They don't focus on the environment around the train. They've got all this space that they can work with on either side of the train track. They don't put up barriers, from my knowledge. If they do, they're not focused on a whole lot. My suggestions, they need to take more responsibility with the people involved. They need to make sure that their conductors are safe. That means ensuring that whatever system they put onto the train is the most effective. They need to worry about the locals more. You can't just slow down the speed limit. I mean, if you have to put up barriers or have the train go over or under wherever there's people at, something along those lines. Yes, it costs money, but it is overall safer. Duties to the environment. Again, they should really do something about fires that can happen in the event of a derailment, whether it be fire suppression systems built onto the train cars or a material that's not going to spark, or using less material that's going to spark. And they need to take some duties to the company. They need to push their suggestions a little harder. They need to make sure that the company is staying responsible to these people. Lessons that these engineers should have been able to learn, or even that future engineers can learn. Every action directly affects the environment and the people around them, whether that's the conductor, locals that the trains are passing through, bears, trees, whatever the issue, whatever in the environment that can be affected by a train derailment is directly affected by the actions that these engineers are making. And they need to be more responsible for thinking outside the box. This is a huge lesson that can be learned. Sometimes you can't reinvent the wheel, but you can reinvent or come up with some kind of precaution around the wheel, so to speak. So instead of focusing strictly on the train, they could hopefully have learned that there's stuff outside of the train that they can fix, whether it be the way the company thinks or something that they can put around the track to help protect the environment, protect the people around them.